Hey everybody, this is Strategywizard again. Today I'm going to be arguing with in my own monologue against Critics of Unusual Suspects by Cool Mini or Not, designed by Paolo Mori. It's a game I really enjoy. Me and my wife have played it many times. In fact, whenever we first got it, we played it so many times in a row that we said we should have an expansion for this game, which there isn't really one for this particular edition. There is an expansion, but I think it's for an older version. But we played it so much. We played it back to back to back. We just thought, wow, this game's amazing, and we just played it tons. So we both really enjoy it, but I already know there's a lot of disdain for this game for reasons that I referenced in my review. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and start looking and seeing what our good friends at Board Game Geek think about this, at least the ones who don't like it. I will, of course, show you somewhere here what the distribution is of the rating, so you can see that 6 is the most common, 7 is pretty awful common, and 8's very common. So overall, people tend to like this game, but there are people who just absolutely cannot stand it, and that's what we're going to look at. So let's go ahead and get going here, starting with the ones. Not a game. Well, it is a game, so apparently you're wrong. This guy says, simply gross. This is like the code names of prejudice. Actually, scratch that. This simply is the code names of prejudice. Except there's no prejudice here. Now, just to give a little background and understanding for anyone watching this video, my wife is black. So we have both enjoyed this, and yeah, there might be a little bit of stereotyping going on, but it's in fun, and we can both enjoy that. Now, I should probably point out that in my house, political correctness is basically thrown out the window for the most part. We're not really worried about that at all. So take that into account as I proceed to attack these people and their disdain for Unusual Suspects. We don't care about political correctness. We're just not worried about it. We don't get too stressed out or worried about things like that, and that's one reason why we really enjoy this game, because we see the humor and the funniness of the stereotyping that does happen. It's not meant to be ruthless or mean. So let's continue forward. This guy says, let's stereotype people. Yay! Well, again, that is kind of the point, is to see the stereotypes happen in real time. Whenever you ask a question, all you can do is go off the way people look. But it's entertaining. You don't take it so seriously, because here's the thing. I don't care what anybody does. Everybody stereotypes on some level. That's just the way it is. My wife stereotypes. I stereotype. It's just something that you do. She's black. I'm white. And we have our own preconceived notions based on where we come from, culture-wise and everything else, and we're all different. So it's actually an interesting exercise to see how people think about the way certain people look. It's actually educational in a lot of ways. It's insightful, and it's just hilarious, to be honest. So you'll see. I'm sure we'll be hearing more about this kind of stuff. But there's nothing better than having someone surprise you in such a way that they force you to confront your biased expectations. Unusual Suspects is the opposite of that. I was trying to guess who would find this game's premise acceptable, but then I realized that was also racial, gender, and geographic stereotyping, suckered into a social justice feedback loop. That's the whole point, though. That is the whole point. You should understand that you can think that way. There's nothing wrong with wondering who would like this type of game. There's nothing wrong with thinking that, because generally speaking, there are types of people who like certain things, who behave a certain way. People, I think, are afraid of stereotypes, and that makes them afraid of this game, and I don't really understand it. I mean, and maybe it's because I'm not sensitive to these types of things, and these people are maybe hypersensitive. That's my guess. I could be wrong. But it seems to me that people are so just, oh my gosh, stereotype somebody, or, give our opinion about the way someone looks. No way! But that's because people, I think, in this society have this idea that if you stereotype, that means that you're being bad. But that is not the case. We stereotype all the time. We stereotype our food. Oh my gosh, there's noodles in it. I do or don't like noodles, therefore I will or will not like it. Or Alfredo sauce, or pizza. I like pizza. I'm going to like that. And then maybe you don't. You stereotype in all kinds of ways. You see a board game that has fantasy written all over it, and you go, ooh, I like fantasy. I'm probably going to like that. You might end up hating it. I mean, you might hate sci-fi, but end up liking a sci-fi game. Any number of possibilities. I mean, stereotyping is something you do. You judge a book by its cover all the time. That's called life, is what that is. To be afraid of that is to be afraid of what's normal. What's bad is being judgmental in ways that are unfair. There's a difference in stereotyping and judging someone unfairly. You can presume something without knowing it, and you don't act on it because you don't know yet. So I'm going on a tangent here, but this game kind of makes you do so, so I guess it's not surprising. This guy says, the comparisons to Guess Who are superficial. This is more social psychology experiment than game. Fiduci's blog showed a homebrew version with famous people, which strikes me as potentially more interesting because there one might speculate based on known traits instead of pure stereotype. Okay, I can understand the value of both, but I'm not going to say more about what I've been saying in response to him. New worst game I've ever played. Truly awful. The back of the box frames the game as provoking discussion on stereotypes, but the mechanics of the game rely on stereotypes and force the players to use them in order to be successful. So let's not judge a book by a cover, right, everyone? But let's make money publishing games promoting hilarious stereotypes about minorities that are best triggering and at worst insightful. Hypocrisy at its finest. See, first of all, I don't see that this stereotypes minorities at all. And I wonder if I could find a quick example in these cards. Minorities, I don't know exactly what they mean, but we've got this card, which would be, I would consider somewhat of a blues type black guy. He likes maybe some blues music or something like that, some jazz. We've got this lady here. She's fairly, you might say that she has maybe a more traditional African background given her necklace, but you're guessing. But she looks like a very nice person. We have, let's see. Oh, here's one. We've got this guy, a nice laid-back person here. So as you can see, it's not... Oh, and here we go. We have more of a street-type person, I suppose you'd say. Someone who's more... I don't know how you'd say it. But someone who's not as professional, but also could be any number of things. Now, you have a variety here. All these cards are of... I would say black people. I think me and my wife might have had a little debate about that, but I would say all these are black people, and they're all different in their own way. There's no stereotyping saying that all of these black people are the same. To say that makes no sense. So it's not about race here. It's about what you look like. And I'm just going to come out and say it, and I might be making some people mad at me, and that's just the way it is, I suppose. But, if you take these two people, it's pretty obvious if you ask a question, if one of the questions might be something like, does this person... let's ask a question. Let's just ask a question so we can just simulate something that might happen here. Well, that's interesting. Okay. Are they interested in politics? Well, I can tell you right now, in my opinion, this guy is way more likely to be interested in politics than this guy. Am I stereotyping? Yes, I am. Am I doing so unreasonably? I would say no. This guy looks like he's more interested in hanging out with his buddies, doing his hobbies, that kind of thing. This guy seems like he's probably a little more educated. He's more likely to be interested in concerns that are going to affect his economic situation, and maybe he has more desire to affect society. Now, I could be wrong. This person could be exactly how I'm describing this guy. But it makes for, to me, interesting situations. Now, let's try a different set of characters here. Let's try... Oh, perfect. Okay, these two. if we ask that same question, which one is more interested in politics? I don't even know the answer. She looks like she couldn't really care less about politics to me, because I think that she seems maybe a little ditzy. Maybe she's just too into her fashion. I don't know. And this guy seems like he's just kind of struggling to stay happy and doesn't have time to worry about things like politics. But again, that's just my personal opinion, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what makes the game interesting to me. You have other cases. Okay, here, let's see. I've got a really good example if I can pull. Oh, well, no, not that one. Where is it at? Oh, gosh, here we go. Perfect. Okay, so let's get these guys back up. Oh, let's do these two. Okay, so you have these two fellows. Which one seems more interested in politics? This guy does to me. This guy looks like a criminal. Now, what makes this game work as well as it does is it's not trying to be biased. It's not trying to make all the black people look this way or all the white people look this way. There's a good mix of both. And there's other races also included here. We've got Indians. We have Asians. So there's a variety here. Now, is there a perfect sampling of every single person? No, but they do have a good variety, and they're not trying to lean one way or the other. It's not about saying this race is this way versus this race is that way. I think that's pretty obvious. I don't see how people could play this and think otherwise. So, this guy said that it was triggering and insightful. I would say not remotely. But again, as I said in my review, this is not the kind of game you probably want to just pull out at some random event with a bunch of people you don't know, because some people are definitely more sensitive than others. I'm not. I can handle it. It doesn't faze me. Other people, they have more of a sensitivity to this kind of thing, or they care about political correctness. Yeah, you probably don't want to play that with those people. But that's why with this game, you just need to know what you're getting into. You need to know the kind of game it is, and if you're like me and aren't so worried about stereotyping or all those kind of things, and realize the difference. Stereotyping is not doing something bad. That's doing something you do every day over everything. Like, say, things, food, objects, board games, video games. I don't care what it is. You're stereotyping all the time. You're not passing judgment on anyone. You're not saying, oh, this person's horrible. You're saying this person seems like they might be that way based on my personal experience. Other people have different experiences, which means, depending on who you play with, you'll see them say, oh, really? I wouldn't have thought that. And you get into a discussion. It's interesting, at least to me. This guy says, it's an excuse to engage in prejudice. It's not clever, just gross. No, it's not an excuse to engage in prejudice. It's an excuse to have a good time. Whoa, shame on Cool Mini or Not for deciding to let people have a good time. Now, I'm not going to say you can't bring prejudice into it. You could if you have it, but I just have a feeling that most people aren't bringing prejudice to a board game. Maybe I'm wrong. I find it hard to believe. You can tell me otherwise if you know better. A game which completely relies on ignorant, culturally ingrained stereotypes. I disagree again. It's not. They say it relies on. It doesn't rely on anything other than just personal opinion. That doesn't mean that it has to be culturally ignorant stereotypes. Because first of all, most stereotypes that you have are usually based on, at least partially on, personal experience. It doesn't mean that just because here's the way I look at it. People can say all day long, these types of people are this way, these types of people are this way. At least for me, that's not so motivating in how I perceive reality. What's way more important is what I experience in my real life. So I think this guy's wrong, and I'm not saying some people might not be that way, but for me and my wife, whenever we play, it's about reality, what we experience, and how we interpret that into what we see in the game. And the way we both bring in our own realities makes for very exciting gameplay. Okay, there are very serious racist, classist, sexist undertones in this game, and it encourages people to be all those things in a way that other games do not. If I give the publisher the benefit of the doubt and say they're simply ignorant, that would be generous. I really expect more of our community. Cards Against Humanity promotes hateful speech, but in a randomized way that makes players more focused on getting a laugh than promoting harmful stereotypes. While this game is not funny and wants you to make judgment on wealth, skin color, gender, because that's all you have to go on, if you played this game with a 13-year-old, you would literally be reinforcing racism into their decision-making. There are better games with better themes and better mechanics. Why would you be reinforcing racism? I don't even see why racism even comes into this. I mean, that's like saying that if so... I don't know what that's like saying, but to assume that if you get a 13-year-old to play it, that racism is going to come into place, that implies that they're already racist. Why would you assume that? I think my opinion is that these people are the ones that have a problem because it's almost like they're afraid of expressing their thoughts or something. I don't know why you assume racism would be here unless you are. That's my opinion. These people would probably disagree. But this guy also says, he acts like Cards Against Humanity is better. And I'm going to say this. I have played Cards Against Humanity and I will never play it again because to me it is just gross and disgusting and demoralizing in and of itself because of the words and the situations that it purposely brings up. Now, do I understand why people enjoy it? Of course I do. Did I laugh when I played it? Yes, I did. But it's too extreme for me. In my opinion, this is way more tame and way cleaner, way more wonderful to play Unusual Suspects because here you really are seeing different people's perspectives. In Cards Against Humanity, you're pretty much you're just being disgusting or ridiculous for the sake of it, and I don't think that's something that I would want to promote. That's just me. Obviously, some people disagree. Okay, we're taking forever here. Let's get to the 2s. Who knows if I'll even get past that? I don't know. It has comments. Let's look. A racist game. No, it's not. This game exists only to enable people to talk about their preconceptions. I hated it. Oh, more of the same. This guy posts a link to a review that I'm not going to go read. Racism/sexism the game. Terrible. Again, you're wrong. A game of prejudices and superficial tendencies. Don't know if I hate this or Robo Rally more. Well, you're wrong again. Social experiment in a box isn't far off, but not much of a game to talk of. Okay, at least this guy's being a little more reasonable, I think, and not being so biased. This guy says prejudice as a game mechanism. I found it painfully awkward to play. Why do people think there's prejudice? I can only imagine that people who feel that way have those prejudices and they're maybe ashamed that they're revealing it. I mean, how else would you even claim this? I don't believe there's any prejudice in this game at all unless you bring it to the table. So I can only assume that these people are bringing it to the table and therefore they've got a problem with it. That doesn't mean the game's bad. That means that you're prejudiced and you're the problem. The box is nice. The artwork of the cards are okay, but did they forget the gameplay bit? I'm probably not the target audience, but still, it's randomly deciding what character to flip. Boring. No, it's not random, and this guy, I can't even address that. If you think it's random, then you don't even get it. So let's move on to the 3s. Okay. Tried this one despite the reviews because it was what was being played. It is pretty much profiling the game. Okay, another person who doesn't get it. I'm sorry to say that I didn't really get this. Don't get me wrong. I think the main mechanic is brilliant, but to me it fails at the same time. Why? Because when you state a yes and no question, there is a huge possibility that every character that you have left would say the same thing, and then it's just a random pick of the cards. Okay, you can state the previous questions can weigh in, but personally I think that it doesn't really work. A lot of the questions are simply hard to just answer yes and no to. I would like to try a variant where I get a question like, how many of the characters pay more tax than you? That way I need to try and rank the characters and give some sort of information. I realize that it would detract from the theme that it's an interrogation where you ask one person questions, but it would improve the game. Okay, now this is something that's actually different that I can address. I can understand where he's coming from, but I think that's where some of the strategy comes in. You have to decide how many people do I want to flip over right now. Like you might be 100% confident that 6 of them should be flipped over. You're like, you know what? I know these 6 people are innocent, but it can be worth it to not flip over all 6, to buy yourself a little more time, to have more people to flip over later. The more people you flip over, the more of a chance you can get stuck where this guy's talking about, where multiple characters can be answer the same question. But I would argue this, that generally speaking, it's fairly simple to knock out a good number of people at the beginning. It does depend on the group you have laid out in front of you and the question that gets asked, but I don't see this problem coming up much, if any at all. This game has some useful things about it in terms of mindfulness, social consciousness, and cultural commentary, but frankly, I don't find it fun. Now, that's interesting. This guy actually, he's on the other side, maybe more on my side, I guess, thinking, this game is not racist. It's nothing negative. It's actually an interesting way of interacting with people and seeing how their opinions come into this stereotyping type game, but he just doesn't think it's fun, and so be it. I'm very torn with this game and how I feel about how I should rate it. On one hand, it is a quick, light game that gets people to work together and determine who the true suspect is based on a true-false answer to some questions. However, it bothers me that this game could win the award of board game most likely to inflame and or reinforce racist, classist, gender, ageist stereotypes of all kinds. Some of the comments I got from my group are, those women would never play video games, or that guy is totally a thug and would never go to the opera. And, in parentheses, they say Latino male with diamond earrings. Which, to be honest, if it's the one I'm thinking that they're talking about, I'm going to see if I can find it real quick. Because in this particular case, I would have to probably agree with the person who said that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it so easily, though. There's so many characters to go through. Wait, I think I'm getting close. Oh, yeah, right here. Does this guy look like he'd go to the opera? No, I don't think so. Is there anything wrong with me saying that? No, I don't think so. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying he does not look like he would go to the opera. He could, but I'm not saying that he doesn't. That's the difference between stereotyping and judging in a way that's like, this is the way it is. Stereotypically, yeah, he doesn't go to the opera. It's a possibility he might, but you're making a guess based on what you know about people. So, I don't even see why that's a problem. And saying those women would never play video games, there's a lot of the women in here that it looks like they sure wouldn't play video games. And I would guess that an 80-year-old woman doesn't. Now, guess what? My grandmother, who happens to be about that age, she has played video games. She played Tetris. She played Mario. But that doesn't mean that I can't use a logical, rational history and experience that I've had to say, most 80-year-old women don't play video games. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. It doesn't mean that none of them do. It's just my experience says that they don't. This guy says, or the woman in the sari and with the bindi on her forehead definitely does yoga. Well, whenever, no one in here definitely does yoga. So whenever you're trying to make a statement like that, you're basically saying, out of the choices, this person looks like they're more likely to. I don't see why that's wrong. As one other commenter noted, this game could otherwise be renamed Prejudice and Racism the Game. Guess Who is really about objective items like glasses, women, men, etc. And there isn't any judgment call, which puts it into safe territory. This really brings it into the danger zone, in my humble opinion, and as a result, I have to rate it much lower. For all the reasons I've said, I disagree. Okay. That's pretty much it. I don't think I'm going to go over this anymore. You get the idea. Hopefully this is helpful to you. You can see mostly why people don't like it, which is they think that it's prejudice and racist and all this other stuff. Hopefully my opinion, I might have made some of you angry, and I apologize if I did, but hopefully you realize where I'm coming from, that you're bringing it to the game. If it's bothering you, you're bringing it, and you might be revealing something about yourself or the people you play with. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you learn things about people, and maybe they're things that you are glad to know, and you go, that's not the kind of person I want to be friends with anymore. Okay, well, you learn something helpful, because otherwise you'd have been friends with someone who you really wouldn't want to be friends with if you really understood them. I don't see why this is a bad thing. If anything, I'd say this is a great thing, and I really enjoy it. But please leave in the comments, do you disagree, agree, think I'm crazy, think I'm horrible? Do you think that I'm just some bad man? I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I appreciate you watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful so you can see, what the negatives are that some people perceive, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care, everybody.